Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production Channel here at YouTube. Welcome to the first collection update video in quite some time. Because of course, if you know why, in my last video, which was a concert review for Anvil on the Pounding the Pavement USA 2019 tour, that I was pretty much all out in April, of course, seeing them, and of course then staying for 2 other weeks and stuff, so I was down there for 3 weeks, so I didn't have any content for this channel. But that just gave me more to just, whenever I came back, after my time there in April, that I pretty much would come back with a whole bunch of stuff to talk about for this channel. So that's kind of the situation here. But for this, before I even get to any of this stuff that I had really throughout all of April that I picked up, I'm pretty much just going to talk about stuff what I got since January 27th to at least within scattered here, whatever that was like stuff that my brother gave me or so as pretty much like a gift, and of course what I had gotten just recently. So without further ado, let's get right in to the purchase I had gotten on January 27th, which I had shown this in my the Vinyl Tag 2019 video. This, of course, was a part of the question of recent purchase. And that's, of course, the 2013 vinyl reissue for Toys in the Attic from Aerosmith. This, of course, was not the Record Store Day limited pressing. This is just the standard 2013 pressing, which uses the same remaster that was used on the Record Store Day limited edition pressings. Of course, this is the only Aerosmith album I have on record. And of course, I did get a CD of theirs just recently, or at least during that time in April, but I'm saving that for another video, which I'll state at the very end of the video. So yeah, it's a pretty nice sounding pressing, great remastering on this one. Different from the 1993 remasters and stuff, so just great to finally have a copy of Toys in the Attic on vinyl, even though I have it on CD, but it's just very nice to have it on record. And of course, on January 30th, this is, of course, the last vinyl I got for this, or at least I'll be showing for this particular video, which, of course, is the only album from the band Riggs. If you are familiar with this band, you are probably familiar with the 2 tracks that they contributed to the heavy metal animated movie soundtrack that was released back in 1981 to that whole movie, which were Radar Rider and Heartbeat. After that, Jerry Riggs & Co. would record a full-length record for Warner Brothers / Full Moon Productions, or Full Moon Records, which of course doesn't feature any re-recordings of Heartbeat and Radar Rider, which I'm fine with that. It's always great to hear just all-around new material. Just solid 80s, early 80s melodic hard rock. That kind of pushes on AOR, but it's not too AOR. It's just good enough melodic hard rock that at times slightly reminds me a little bit like either UFO or Michael Schenker, and just to some extent, or just some of those kind of bands. Just good all around. After this album, though, Jerry Riggs would split up, and Jerry Riggs would go on to play with Pat Travers on the Hot Shot album. So, and then even played with Pat Travers for quite a bit, even then. But, so, yeah, the only record from Riggs. So, yeah, solid melodic hard rock. Alright, finally now to the CDs. This, of course, was on the same day because I had purchased this and the record, and another one as well I'll be showing here. This one I had shown in my top, was it 30 of 1975, and this is just a solid album. This, of course, is Neo Merriweather, the Kryptonite, the CD reissue. Just a great early or mid-70s heavy record. Just a great album. Bonus tracks are actually a whole other album, like a really early Neo Merriweather record called, was it, I forgot the name. I think I know which one it is. It's, I think was it, Merriweather, Bowers, and Richardson, I think it was titled. Great stuff. The Bowers, Merriweather, Richardson album it sounds more Fleetwood Mac-ish, and think more like the Peter Green era stuff. Like, it's a great sort of early blues rock record. Just great sounding stuff. Different from the Kryptonite album. Very different from that, but it's a solid album. So 2 albums on 1 disc. So there, Kryptonite from Neo Merriweather. Other CD here, which of course I purchased again on the same around the same time as I did the Riggs and the Neo Merriweather, which again I showed this also in my top, I think it was 35 of 1975, as of course is Fighting from Thin Lizzy, I think it's the 1996 remaster. Great album. I already said what I had to say of it in my 75 video, which I think I've already linked you anyways. You probably would have saw the link on top of you if it had showed up. Either way, just a solid album from Thin Lizzy. Definitely one of my favorites from Thin Lizzy, and just a great album. So, there. And of course, on February 24th, I ended up purchasing these 3 Led Zeppelin albums, which I didn't have these on CD. I have at least 2 of these albums on record, though they are definitely beat. But I just wanted to have them on CD for the just because. Though the one Led Zeppelin album here I don't have on record, but I'm glad to have it on CD. There we go. Led Zeppelin 2. Finally have a CD copy of this album. The only Led Zeppelin albums I had on CD were the first album and Presence. And even though I don't think I have that CD copy anymore of Physical Graffiti, but I have on record anyways. Definitely one of my favorite albums from Led Zeppelin. This album and Presence are probably 2 of my all-time favorite Led Zeppelin albums. Just great stuff. Even though I'm not the biggest Led Zeppelin fan, those 2 albums right here are just some of my favorites from them. So, finally have a copy of Led Zeppelin 2. Of course, finally have a CD copy of this one. That's, of course, is Led Zeppelin 3. Good album. Probably not my favorite Led Zeppelin album, but it's almost close to there. Again, songs like Immigrant Song, Out in the Tiles are just 2 of my favorite songs from Led Zeppelin. But other than that, or even a Celebration Day I also like. But I'll get to my favorite version of Celebration Day anyways, but still solid, good album from Led Zeppelin. And of course, this one, beat copy on record I have, and finally have it on CD. That's, of course, is Led Zeppelin 4 Zozo, whatever you want to call this album. This is their 4th album. Probably my least favorite Led Zeppelin album, even though it grows on me over time, but this is probably my least favorite. Of course, I like songs like Rock and Roll, Black Dog, Misty Mountain Hop. Even, of course, I also dig, oh, geez, the other track on here. Let me open it up. Unless I might remember it right now. The Battle of Evermore. I think it was titled. That's probably one of my other favorite tracks. And, of course, When the Levee Breaks are all songs I like. But I kind of find Stairway to Heaven to be one of the most overrated Led Zeppelin songs, even though I don't mind it when it's on. But when it comes to picking songs from Led Zeppelin, that's probably the most overrated track from them. So if you have a problem with that, I'm sorry, that's your problem, not my problem. Alright, so yeah, finally glad to have these 3 Led Zeppelin albums. Of course, on March 3rd, I ended up getting another Led Zeppelin album. That's, of course, I've got this on record, but That's, of course, The Song Remains the Same. This, of course, is the 2018 remaster reissue, which is the same sort of expanded version remaster of the 2007 release. I know that came out wrong, but whatever, I'm just going along. I know there's differences between this and the original version, which, again, I got both versions, one on record, and of course I've hit on CD here, and I gotta listen to the record again to probably make out the differences between them, but other than that, there's just additional songs that were added to here to make it longer. Either way, this is a great live album. Definitely, and of course I know that Scott Waters and Trog talked about this in their 1976 video. This is definitely a very good live album, though probably the longest, because with this version, this probably makes it to be one of the longest live albums I ever heard. And I know live albums can be generally long, but this is probably the longest one I've ever sat down and listened to, even though it's got some of my, probably the best versions of like rock and roll. Celebration Day, which I finally now mentioned, Black Dog, Over the Hills and Far Away, Misty Mountain Hop, No Quarter, The Song Remains the Same, The Ocean. I actually prefer this version of The Ocean than the one that's on House of the Holy, which is probably my second least favorite Led Zeppelin album. But I always liked the song The Ocean, but I thought that the studio version on House of the Holy sounded very tinny, very thin. Here it's got a much more fuller sound, and it just sounds a lot better here. So it actually brings out what I really kind of liked about it. Just a good, sort of solid, bluesy hard rock track. And of course, I really like the versions of course, Moby Dick, Heartbreaker, and A Whole Lot of Love on here. Of course, it's got Stairway to Heaven, but to be quite honest, besides that, the fucking almost practically 30-minute version of Dazed and Confused is probably almost overstays its welcome half the time. I know it's 26 minutes on the original vinyl version, but on here, on the extended version, it got extended pretty much almost probably 30 minutes. So it probably takes up almost half the time on disc 2. Either way, though, this is a solid live album. Even though, as much as I probably might say that this could very well be my third favorite album from Led Zeppelin, from the first listen. I don't know if I'm gonna pull this out very many times because of this is a long listen. This might be, again, this is probably almost this is practically a very long-winded live album, even though it's just solid. This is almost the equivalent of like turning on like a what is it? What is it that oh gee, I'm trying to think of certain movies to kind of compare at least the extended longness of this album to. But either way, solid out. Heaven's Gate, the movie. It's probably the equivalent of that. It's fucking long, but it's a solid album. So their Song Remains the Same from Led Zeppelin. That's about it for Led Zeppelin there. Also, they got that same day as well. Actually, no. We're getting to that right now. So this was purchased all on the 17th, or at least the 16th of March. I ended up getting the 30th anniversary edition of Girls, Girls, Girls from Motley Crue. Didn't have it in my collection, which of course the reason is, and we kind of open it up again. Generic fucking sleeve though for me, very generic. However, it does end up getting turned out to a digipack, which of course has the original artwork. I think some people might show it anyways on the VC, but I'm just showing it here. There, of course, features I guess you say a little mini sort of interview or a little documentary, a bit of sort of Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee reminiscing on the album. Even though I think Nikki Sixx might have changed his stance on the album, because I remember hearing he always was very lukewarm towards the album. But now he acts like he's never said any of that before, so he's really changed his whole entire tone on the album. Like, it's not a bad album, It's like, it's an album that I initially didn't just throw it off as just kind of your average sort of sleaze rock record. It's like, it's got some soft, decent Motley Crue tunes on here. But overall, that's the reason for how kind of messy it is. If you've ever seen the movie The Dirt, there's kind of a reason for why this sound turned out the way that it did. Because even though they never went into the recording process of it, but maybe they didn't really have to, because the stuff that is around the time of like 86, 87, it makes sense for why the album turned out very sort of unfocused. Even though I don't mind it, but there's a reason. Also, I think it's one of the worst ideas to end your album on a live cover of Jailhouse Rock. Terrible idea, and it's not that great of a version. The best version I've heard of Jailhouse Rock is from ZZ Top on the Fandango album, but they didn't need to do that. That was probably the dumbest idea, and it shows kind of where their headspace was when it came to this album. But still, it's solid. But still, seeing that whole even that just shows how kind of slightly, as you could say, two-faced that Nikki Sixx kind of is. He kind of is one who likes to talk out of his ass half the time when it comes to some of the Motley Crue albums. So, I'm not enough rambling on that. The 30th anniversary edition of Girls, Girls, Girls. Now, the other one. If it wasn't for, let's say, like Cloudy Melder and Vinyl Transmission, I probably would have went and got this to revisit it, because this sound takes me back to when I was a kid, and that's, of course, is Bad to Hell from Meatloaf. I have once had a burned copy of this one a long time ago from a friend, but since then I hadn't heard that CD copy, not since the mid to late 2000s, not since then, like 2006. I think it was like 2005, 2006. It's been such a long time since I've heard this sound since then. But all I remembered from it was that the title track, which kicked off the album, was the only song I really liked off of this. The rest of it really was a little bit hit and miss for me. But since getting a copy, while I still like the title track from this album, just even though it's ridiculously over the top, it's still by far one of the best songs off the album. But since then, there's a few songs that have actually started growing on me over time. I can't completely place which two, but I think it was Paradise by the Dashboard Light ended up being one I also kind of ended up liking quite a bit here. And of course, 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad, I think, was the other one. One of them at the sort of 50-ish kind of rock and roll style, and at the time as a kid, it didn't initially hit me as much, but ever since then, it has grown on me. So there you go. Bad to Hell from Meatloaf. Alright, I guess that's kind of the gap there. But whilst I was down in Fresno, which of course I talked about, let me show this here. I had seen, of course, Archer Nation, which is a band that I'm wearing right now, the t-shirt, which of course Beneath the Dream. When I saw them live for the very first time, which that was the first time I ever heard of them, I liked them from the start. They, of course, the band that had been touring with Anvil throughout the whole USA tour. When I did, I pretty much went and got ended up picking up a copy of Beneath the Dream on the merch table. And after that, I pretty much wanted to check out Subversive, so I asked my brother, and of course he goes on to get pretty much ends up getting me 2 of their albums, even though one of them only at least made it while I was down there. But that's, of course, is Doomsday Prophets, which is the Archer, or now known as Archer Nation, their very first album. Though technically Dylan Rose is the only member that's on this one, since he was the one that formed the band, and the most consistent member of Archer, now known as Archer Nation. this is a good album. Their very first one released in like 2006. It's a solid album, but it has some good tracks and definitely shows how good of a guitar player Dylan Rose is. However, from this and going to Beneath the Dream, which is the only two I have right now, you could tell that he really tightened up his musicianship and really tightened up the songwriting on Beneath the Dream. Whereas this one, his songwriting is a little bit slightly loose, because not every song is within the same style. You can hear, it's like you don't hear as much of that Megadeth influence that you kind of hear on Beneath the Dream. Instead, you hear more influences from maybe like, let's say, like either Zakk Wylde to some extent on certain songs, which almost have this Ozzy Black Sabbath kind of feel to it. And of course, some songs almost have a sort of Van Halen-ish feel to it, which is for his influence even from like Eddie Van Halen. Some of it might even a bit like Randy Rhoads. Some of it will be either just all of those kind of guitar players. So it's all varied throughout. But in the end, it's a solid album, raw production for sure. But still, it's a solid album. But definitely, there was a lot more better to come with time. So, still, solid debut album from Archer. But with that CD there, however, the seller ended up sending some 2 freebies. So, not just that I get that, but I get these 2. As of course is Burning Point. That's of course these 2 albums are all promo copies, all released for SPV. These are all promo copies. Burning Point here, I think a Finnish power metal band. So there's of course CD there. I'm gonna go a little bit better on the photo there. Just decent, solid European power metal. Definitely some decent sound, of course. How can I put this? It's definitely not like stuff like either Nightwish or even like Dragon Force or some other places, but it's definitely just, it is kind of typical at times of European power metal. But it's not bad. I actually quite dig this. I actually kind of like this a little bit better than certain most modern European power metal bands. But yeah, it's a fine album. Their second album, just again a solid European power metal out of Finland. Though I guess technically you could say it's Scandinavian power metal. Sorry. So, anyways, there. All right, and the next one, of course, is Total Eclipse. Let me kind of take this out of here, just to show this off a bit. Total Eclipse are a U.S. power metal band out of San Francisco. Album titled Ashes of Eden, whereas I forgot to also mention that this, of course, this Burning Point album is titled Feeding the Flames. So there you go. There's the back cover. Of course, here's the CD. Now, this is definitely some good U.S. power metal. Definitely at times very similar to, at times maybe Vicious Rumors, or sometimes it'll also be kind of similar to other sort of European power metal, maybe like early Hellstar to some extent, or those kind of bands. Like, it's just solid, or Shock Paris, it's all solid U.S. power metal. The album, of course, is produced by Ulus. If you've never heard of him, he's, of course, now the recent Accept guitar player, who, of course, have been playing with them since the Rise of Chaos album. So, very cool there with the Accept connection with Total Eclipse. But, yeah, solid U.S. power metal album from Total Eclipse. So, I'm probably for sure going to end up checking out more of this band. So there's that. Also, forgot to also bring up that I guess all this right here, this bag right there, will be at the very end. Just some great stuff there. I know this is probably gonna be like almost a 30-minute video, maybe. All right, so last 2 that I at least what I just got recently. Yeah, on I think it was like pretty much the very end of April, like April 28th. I ended up picking up a copy of Slip of the Tongue from Whitesnake. Didn't have this in my collection, in my Whitesnake collection, so ended up picking this up. This, of course, is the album right after the 87 album. This, of course, was the first for Steve Vai. And I guess you could say Adrian Vandenberg, even though Adrian Vandenberg never played on the album because I think he sustained an injury, I think, on his hand, so it kept him from actually recording the album. But he did write the song still for this one. But with Steve Vai, they ended up finding him, and he just came in and recorded the guitar parts for it. And I've heard some people say that before prior to listening to this one, that Steve Vai probably didn't record any of this stuff. There was a lot of room, a lot of, I guess say almost theories or rumors that it was still John Sykes that recorded it. You know, upon listening to this one, I think some of that might be bullshit. Because there, I can tell this is Steve Vai. It almost has this Van Halen-ish feel to it, or David Lee Roth type of flash to some of the songs on here. Like, I can kind of tell between the difference between John Sykes' guitar playing and Steve Vai's. John Sykes has a much more bluesier, almost more stripped down kind of guitar playing, where here there's a bit of flash shown in where a little bit more over the top side, even though it's not completely over the top, but there's at least a little bit there that kind of distinguish, and I think the guitar tone is not of John Sykes for sure. So it has this real weird Van Halen-ish sound. That's the one thing I do not register Whitesnake with is Van Halen. It's like when I think of I think of Whitesnake, I think of that sort of bluesy, Deep Purple kind of sound. Even on the 87 album, I can hear a little bit of that Deep Purple-ish sort of sound on there. Hahowever, here, it's not very much there. I end up hearing this weird sort of mixture like a David Coverdale was then brought in to replace Sammy Hagar and Van Halen. Or whatever, maybe replacing David Lee Roth. I don't know. It's just weird with this sound for me. It's not bad, but it's a little something I did not expect. It's not a bad album, but with all that, it just sounds weird to me. So, still, solid album, a good album, I would say, from Whitesnake, but it's not one I'm probably going to pull out very much if I'm in that mood for Whitesnake. So, Slip of the Tongue from Whitesnake. And, of course, today, received this, and I'll be doing a review, so I'm not going to talk about much for it. That's, of course, the Seahawks Fallout Rituals. Of course, the reason between me and Seahawks is that I'm friends with the singer, Carmine. So, of course, I have reviewed Speed Metal Mania back in 2016. So, again, solid album from Seahawks, but I definitely will end up reviewing this, so I don't have to talk about much about it. So, there's that. Finally, the very last thing. Since, of course, I kind of neglected to over this one because of everything, again, it's all scattered throughout this one. This is not going to be what the next collection update video is going to be. As I was making my way to Fresno on that day of March 30th or April 1st, while we were driving, we had stopped into a record store in Sacramento on the way to Fresno. So the record store is, of course, that's in Sacramento, was titled Dimple Records, as you can see right there. And I just stopped in there just to see what they had. I know my brother had stopped in there before, pretty much a year back, but he wanted to kind of take me into there, so I went inside there, and what I came out was some pretty decent stuff. So here, kind of keep this going, is debut from Dangerous Toys. Always was interested in Dangerous Toys. The reason is because I had gotten into a band called Watchtower, and of course it was the album Energetic Assembly, or Disassembly I think it was titled, and I just liked the sort of style of them, even though it's been a long time since I've actually heard that Watchtower album. But what really got me interested was that the singer that was with Watchtower, he sang, would leave Watchtower after that album, I would end up being a part of the Texas sleazy hard rock band called Dangerous Toys. So I was really interested kind of checking out because I actually kind of dug his voice for me, even though it was very hype, almost kind of Geddy Lee-ish almost. But I was very interested in checking out Dangerous Toys. And of course, he did also, was it Igniter and Texas Metal Alliance. So I was just very interested in checking out Dangerous Toys. And for the longest time, finding Dangerous Toys' albums on CD out in the wild is not very easy. So when I stopped into that record store in Sacramento called Dimple Records, here's a copy of the first Dangerous Toys for about $7. So I'm like, I gotta go and pick this up and finally give it a shot. And it's a solid, sleazy, hard rock album. I'll definitely talk more about this. I'm actually going to do a Album of the Week spotlight on this one. So, just again, solid album released on Columbia Records. There's some solid hard rock tunes on here. So, yeah, good album from Dangerous Toys, our debut. So I'll be out looking for some more stuff from Dangerous Toys. Also, I finally found a copy of this one. That's, of course, the Skid Row's second album, Slave to the Grind. This, of course, turned out to be the explicit, uncensored version of the album, which the difference is between the censored and uncensored version is one song. The uncensored version had a song called Beggar's Day. However, on the uncensored version, the song Get the Fuck Out replaced Beggar's Day. So, of course, I know my CD ended. Which I'll get to that as well. Yeah, this is going to be a long fucking video. Again, replace that. And just get a solid album. This might be right now my favorite Skid Row album. I actually kind of like this one even better than the first sound. This has just got a great, slightly more heavier sound to it. There's some good songs on here, like the title track, Psycho Love, are just all almost ripping speed metal tracks. But it just has a great sort of attitude to this one. Mud Kicker, Monkey Business, again, the song Get the Fuck Out, Living on a Chain Gang, Creep Show, Riot Act, all solid tunes, all solid songs. So finally glad. However, the only drawback, even though this was $7 when I then got it home, the Dangerous Toys is pretty much in good condition. However, the only problem with this one is that apparently whoever took care of this, if you could kind of see, there's some slight scratches there, tiny little ones that really don't very much affect play on my CD player, though it did affect the play when I play it on a stereo. So with that, even though I'm glad to have a copy, but just a little drawback. Either way, finally glad to have it. It will play definitely on the CD player, but in terms of like the computer or the stereo on that, not very much. Especially on it gets real bad on Living on a Chain Gang. Either way, glad to have a copy of it. Finally actually hear it. Alright, so, last two, let me see if I can zip through these. This video is definitely quite long. Definitely turned out to be a really long one because I just, throughout the whole month, I just bought a whole lot of shit. A lot of shit. Alright. It's just crazy. On the day that I walked into Dimple Records, these two were repressed. Finally glad to have these two Motorhead albums. That's, of course, is Overnight Sensation and Snakebite Love. These, of course, are the 2019 represses on BMG and Murder One. I've been searching for these albums for a long time. Once in a while, Overnight Sensation would show up at Rasputin down in Fresno a few times, but since then, not very much. But when these albums got repressed, which I didn't know that these were getting repressed, but when I came in there, they were sealed, and I was like, I gotta grab these. I'll grab them now. Again, just solid Motorhead albums. It's what you're gonna expect from Motorhead. Just again, good albums. I pretty much it's like trying to comment on each of the two is almost is a little redundant because it's what you'd expect from Motorhead. Again, all good albums from Motorhead, so finally glad to have Overnight Sensation and Snakebite Love. Now, the very last one was a really surprise one, and this is probably the best one here for me, because of this was... I thought I probably wasn't going to run across this because of how much people want this for online. That's, of course, is Vardis, The World Gone Mad, the Best of Vardis 2 CD Anthology. Man, what I really could start getting the Vardis when going online to see how much people, or at least to see how much this was going for, because a lot of the early Castle Records releases have been really hard to get a hold of these days. But a lot of people would ask this for either $60 or even like 40, depending, or even at times 80 to 70, 100, or even the maximum being almost over $200. It's ridiculous for how many people would want this. But when I walked into Dimple Records, here's a copy of The World's Gone Mad for about $10. Dirt fucking cheap for this, and glad to have it. Again, it pretty much features, it has a lot of the 7-inch versions of like Blue Rock, Come On, Silver Machine, and so on. But it definitely has a lot of the live versions that are taken from like the 100 Miles Per Hour album. Has definitely songs from the very first full-length album, The World's Gone Insane, or The World's Insane, I think it's titled. And of course, their second album, Quo Vardis, which the whole entire Quo Vardis album is featured on this album. And again, this is a solid album. If you were ever to find this out in the wild, grab it. This is, if you want a good taste of Vardis, this is definitely one to check out. It's just all just good rockin' new wave or British heavy metal. So that's about it. Gone on for about 37 minutes or so. So I hope you enjoyed. What was playing in the background was The Gates of Slumber, which of course is titled The Awakening, their very first album. And of course after this, the next collection video I'll be doing is pretty much titled The Fresno Dig, because I bought a lot of shit while I was down in Fresno. But I wanted to show a little bit of stuff that I got, that I received. But when it comes to like digging out for records on record stores and stuff, yeah, I'm saving all of that for the next one. So until then, this is Heavy Threats. I'm out. I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.